"Get this filthy old woman out of here." Those words came out of the mouth of my only son, Nick, right after he slapped me 5 times. My daughter-in-law, Fiona, clapped her hands as if she were watching a play in a theater. I stood there trembling in my room, unable to believe what I had just lived through. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. When Nick opened the door and saw who was outside, he fell to his knees, crying and begging for my forgiveness. But it was already too late. My name is Carol Parker. I am 60 years old, and what I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. For decades, I believed that being a good mother meant giving everything without expecting anything in return. I believed that unconditional love was synonymous with absolute sacrifice. But that night on the cold floor of my own house, I understood that there is a huge difference between loving someone and allowing them to destroy you. It all started 3 months earlier when I decided to sell the farmhouse I had inherited from my parents. It was a beautiful piece of land on the outskirts of Austin with pecan trees and an old water well that my father had built with his own hands. The land did not produce like it used to, and I did not have the strength to maintain it. A developer offered me a considerable sum. It was not a fortune, but it was enough to live with dignity for the rest of my days. Nick was my only son. I raised him alone after his father abandoned us when he was 7 years old. I worked double shifts at an elementary school. I washed other people's clothes. I sold homemade pies on weekends. I did everything so he could study, so he could have what I never had. And he made it. He graduated as an engineer, got a good job, and married Fiona. I was proud, or at least I thought I was. When I told them about the sale of the farm, Nick smiled and hugged me. "That is great, Mom. You deserve it. You." Fiona smiled too, but there was something strange in her eyes. Something I did not know how to read at that moment. A week later, Nick came to visit me. He brought a bottle of bourbon and 2 glasses. "Let's make a toast to your new chapter, Mom." We drank together in the kitchen, and for an instant, I felt like I was getting my son back. That little boy who used to hug me tight when he had nightmares. That young man who cried in my arms the day his father left. Then between laughter and memories, Nick dropped the question. "Mom, have you thought about what you are going to do with the money from the farm?" "Well, put it in the bank, I suppose. Live quietly. Maybe travel a little." He nodded slowly. He filled my glass again. "And have you never thought about helping me?" The air became heavy. "Help you, Nick? You have a job, you have a house." "Yes, Mom. But Fiona and I have plans. We want to open a business, something big, and with your support, we could achieve it." He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if my money were also his. I felt a knot in my stomach, but I did not want to ruin the moment. "We will see, son." "Let me think about it." Nick stood up. He was not smiling anymore. "It is okay, Mom. Think about it." And he left. That night, I could not sleep. I stayed up staring at an old photograph I kept on my nightstand. It was a picture of Nick, 5 years old, sitting on my lap in front of the farmhouse. He was holding a pecan he had just picked and laughing with that clean laugh that children have. I was hugging him as if he were my most precious treasure. And he was, but something in his look that afternoon in the kitchen made me doubt. For the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own son. The days following that conversation with Nick passed slowly, as if time itself were waiting for something. I tried to convince myself that I had misunderstood his words, that my son was just excited about his plans, and that I, as always, was exaggerating. But mothers know we have an instinct that does not fail, and something inside me whispered that things had changed. I decided to distract myself by cleaning the attic. I had not gone up there in years. Among dusty boxes and old clothes, I found a wooden trunk that my mother had given me when Nick was born. Inside were photo albums, letters, drawings he made in elementary school. I sat on the creaking wooden floor and opened the first album. There was my boy. Nick at 2 years old with his round cheeks and huge eyes. Nick at 4 dressed as a cowboy for Halloween. Nick at 6, the day of his first communion, so serious in his white suit that he looked like a little angel. I smiled. I cried a little too. I remembered when he was 8 years old and got chicken pox. He spent 2 weeks in bed covered in red spots with a fever that would not go down. I slept in a chair next to him, putting cool cloths on his forehead every hour. One morning, he opened his eyes and told me, "Mom, when I grow up, I am going to take care of you, like you take care of me." I believed him. I remembered when he turned 12, and I gave him a used bicycle that I bought with the money I saved for 6 months. It was not new, but I painted it blue and put a bell on it that rang loud. Nick screamed with joy. He hugged me so tight he almost knocked me to the ground and went out to ride around the neighborhood until it got dark. That night, before sleeping, he came into my room and told me, "Thank you, Mom. You are the best mom in the world." I believed him. I remembered when he was 16 and his father, after 9 years of absence, appeared out of nowhere, wanting to make up for lost time. Nick looked at him with contempt and told him, "Time cannot be recovered, and you are not my father." My mom has been my father and my mother all my life. That day, I felt that all the effort, all the exhaustion, all the sleepless nights had been worth it. I believed him. When Nick entered the university to study engineering, I worked 3 jobs. I taught at the elementary school in the morning, cleaned offices in the afternoon, and sold pies and lemonade on weekends at the market. My hands always smelled of dough and bleach. My knees hurt from going up and down stairs so much. But every time I saw my son with his books focused on his homework, every time he told me about his projects and his dreams, I felt that everything made sense. "Mom, someday, I am going to give you a better life," he would tell me. "You are going to stop working so hard, I promise you." I believed him. The day he graduated, I cried like never before. I saw my son go up to the stage, with his cap and gown receive his degree, smile with that clean pride that is only felt when you have achieved something with effort. When he came down, he looked for me in the crowd, ran towards me, and hugged me. "We did it, Mom, you and me." I believed him. 2 years later, he met Fiona at a work conference. She was an attractive woman with long hair and a loud laugh. She spoke with confidence, wore expensive clothes, always had perfect nails. She came from a family with money that was obvious, but Nick was in love, and I wanted him to be happy. The first time Fiona came to my house, she looked at everything with an expression I could not decipher. My modest living room with its furniture that was old but clean, my small kitchen where I had prepared so many meals with love, the walls with family photos and a wooden cross I inherited from my grandmother. "How cozy," she said, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Nick did not notice anything or did not want to notice. I prepared pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade biscuits. I set the table with my embroidered tablecloth, the one I only used on special occasions. I served with pride. Fiona ate little, moving the food around on her plate. She took small sips of water. She checked her phone every 5 minutes. "Do you not like the pot roast, Fiona?" I asked her kindly. "It is different. I am just used to another type of food." Nick defended her immediately. "Fiona has a delicate stomach, Mom. Do not take it personally." I did not take it personally, but I kept that uncomfortable feeling somewhere inside me. The wedding was elegant, too. Elegant for my budget, but Fiona's parents paid for almost everything. I contributed what I could: the appetizers, the band, the favors. Nick thanked me, but Fiona barely looked at me when I handed her my contribution. "Thank you, Mrs. Parker," she said with a polite but cold smile, as if I were just any lady and not the mother of the man she was about to marry. On the wedding day, I wore a royal blue dress that I had specially made. It was not expensive, but I looked good. I sat in the front row, proud, emotional. When Nick walked to the altar, he looked for me and smiled. That smile told me, "You are here, Mom. This is thanks to you." I believed him. During the first months of marriage, Nick called me every week. He told me about his job, about the house they were fixing up, about the plans they had. I listened happily, grateful that my son had not forgotten me, like so many sons forget their mothers when they get married. But little by little, the calls became less frequent. Once a week became once every 2 weeks, then once a month. And when we talked, Nick sounded distracted, rushed. "Sorry, Mom, I have a lot of work. I will call you later." I did not complain. Children have their lives. It is natural. But I missed his voice. I missed his visits. I missed being important to him. One day, Fiona called me. It was the first time she reached out to me directly. "Mrs. Parker, I need to ask you a favor." My heart jumped with hope. Maybe she was pregnant. Maybe I was going to be a grandmother. Maybe everything was going to get better. "Of course, Fiona. Tell me. Nick and I are saving money to remodel the house. Could you lend us about $5,000? We will pay you back in 6 months, I promise. $5,000. It was almost everything I had saved at that moment. "Fiona, I do not have that much money available right now." Silence on the other end. "It is okay, Mrs. Parker. I just thought that since you are Nick's mom, but well, it does not matter. Do not worry." And she hung up. That night, Nick called me, not to say hello, not to ask me how I was, but to scold me. "Mom, Fiona told me you do not want to help us. It is not that I do not want to son. It is that I do not have that money. But you have savings, right?" "Yes, but they are for emergencies for my old age. We are your family, Mom. If you do not help us, who are you going to help?" His words hurt me more than I expected. "Nick, I have given you everything I have had all my life." "Yes, Mom, I know. You always remind me." He hung up. I sat in the kitchen, phone in hand, feeling like something had broken between us. I looked at the old photograph on my nightstand. Nick, at 5 years old, laughing in my arms. Where was that boy? When did he become this man who spoke to me with resentment? That night, I could not sleep. I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, remembering every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar I spent on him before myself. And I wondered if I had made a mistake, if perhaps by giving him everything I had taught him that he did not have to be thankful for anything, if perhaps I had raised a son who saw me as a bank and not as a mother. But I still did not want to believe it, not yet. 3 weeks passed without Nick calling me. 3 long weeks where every time the phone rang, my heart jumped, hoping it was him, but it was never him. I did not want to be one of those mothers who chase their children, who suffocate them with calls and complaints. So I waited. I kept silent. And that silence felt like an abyss growing between us. Finally, one Sunday afternoon, I decided to visit him. I prepared his favorite meal, pot roast with carrots, potatoes, and gravy, just how he liked it since he was a child. I put everything in containers. I took the bus that took an hour to his neighborhood, and I rang the doorbell of his house with my heart full of hope. Fiona opened the door. She was wearing designer sweatpants and a tight blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail. She looked me up and down as if measuring whether it was worth letting me in. "Mrs. Parker, what a surprise." She did not say it was nice to see me or please come in, just, "What a surprise," with a tone that was not exactly warm. "Hello, Fiona. I brought you some food. Is Nick here?" "He is asleep. He got home late from work last night." I looked at my watch. It was 3 in the afternoon. "Oh, well, I can wait a while if it is not a bother." Fiona sighed as if my presence were a huge inconvenience. But she stepped aside. "Come in." I entered the house that I had helped pay for when they got married. It had changed a lot since the last time I came. New furniture, a huge television, modern paintings on the walls. Everything looked expensive. Too expensive for 2 people who were supposedly saving money. "Everything looks so nice," I said, trying to be polite. "Yes, we made some changes. Nick wants the house to look good." I sat on the leather sofa that still had that new smell. Fiona sat in front of me, crossed her legs, and checked her phone. She did not offer me water. She did not ask me how I was. She just checked her phone as if I were invisible. "And how have you been?" I asked, breaking the awkward silence. "Good, busy. I am glad. Nick works a lot. Yes, that is why we need that business he told you about to have extra income. There it was again, the subject of money. Fiona. I understand you have plans, but you do not want to support your son. I know Mrs. Parker. Her words were like a dry blow. It is not that I do not want to. It is that I have to watch my money too. I am getting old. I cannot work like before. Fiona looked up from her phone and stared at me. There was something cold in her eyes, something calculating. And what do you need so much money for, Mrs. Parker? You live alone in a house that is already paid off. You do not have big expenses. On the other hand, Nick and I have a life to maintain. We have ambitions. We want to grow. I was speechless. I could not believe she was talking to me like that. Fiona, that money is mine. I earned it working all my life. Yeah. We already know that Nick tells me that you always remind him how much you sacrificed for him. The air became thick. I felt heat in my face. I have never thrown anything in my son's face. But you make him feel it, Mrs. Parker. Believe me, you make him feel it. At that moment, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Nick was coming down, messy hair, face puffy from sleep. He was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. He looked at me in surprise. Mom, what are you doing here? I got up from the sofa with my legs trembling. I came to bring you food, son. Pot roast like you like. Nick looked at the containers on the table with an expression I could not decipher. It was not joy. It was not gratitude. It was something close to discomfort. Thanks, Mom, but we already ate. We ordered food from an app. Oh, well, you can save it for later. Silence. Fiona stood up and walked past Nick, brushing his arm with a familiarity that seemed to say to him, I am on your side. I am going to take a shower. Then we are going out. Right, babe. We agreed to go to the movies. Nick nodded. Fiona went up the stairs without saying goodbye to me. I was left alone with my son. How have you been, Nick? I asked, looking for something, any sign of the boy who used to hug me. Good, Mom. Busy. I see. The house looks very nice. Yes, we have invested in it. Invested? That word sounded strange coming from him. Nick, I want us to talk. About what, Mom? About us. I feel like something changed between you and me. Nick ran his hand through his hair and exhaled with frustration. Nothing changed, Mom. Just that now I have my own life. I have a wife. I have responsibilities. I know, son. But I am your mom. I am always going to be your mom. Yes, I know. But you cannot keep expecting me to be the boy from before. I grew up. His words hurt me more than he imagined. I do not expect you to be a child, Nick. I just expect you to still love me. Nick looked away. He seemed uncomfortable. He seemed annoyed. Of course I love you, Mom, but sometimes I feel like you use that love to control me, control you. What are you talking about the fact that every time I do not do what you expect, you make me feel guilty? Like now with the money thing. I could not believe what I was hearing. Nick, I have never made you feel guilty. I only told you that I cannot give you that money right now because I need it to live. But you can sell the farm and keep everything for yourself, right? There it was. That was what really bothered him. That money is mine, Nick. I am going to use it for my old age. And what about me, Mom? Do I not matter? Of course you matter. But you have a job. You have health. You have a whole life ahead of you. I do not anymore. Nick crossed his arms. His jaw was tense. I knew him. That was his posture when he was angry but did not want to explode. You know what, Mom, Fiona was right. Right about what? That you only think about yourself. That all your life you have made us believe that you sacrificed yourself for me, but in the end, you are just looking for me to owe you something. I felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over me. That is not true. Yes, it is. And do you know what is the worst part? That I believed it. I believed that I had to spend my life thanking you, paying you back, compensating you. But I am tired, Mom. I am tired of carrying that guilt. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. I could not control them. I never wanted you to feel guilt, Nick. I just wanted you to be happy. Well, let me be happy then. Let me live my life without having to answer to you all the time. I do not ask you to answer to me. Yes, you do. With every surprise visit, with every meal you bring without warning, with every call where you ask me why I do not call you more often. Everything is a silent complaint, Mom, and I am fed up. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. My son, my only son, the boy I carried in my womb, whom I nursed, whom I took care of when he was sick, whom I hugged in his worst moments, was telling me that he was fed up with me. "It is okay, Nick," I said with a broken voice. "I will not bother you again. Mom, it is not that. Yes, it is. I understand. You are right. You grew up. You have your life. And I have to accept it." I took my purse. I left the containers with food on the table. "Keep the food or give it to whoever you want. I am leaving." "Mom, wait." But I was already walking toward the door. I did not want him to see me cry anymore. I did not want to give him that satisfaction. I opened the door, and before leaving, I turned around one last time. "I just want you to know one thing, Nick. Everything I did out of love. I never expected anything in return. But now I see that maybe I was wrong. Maybe I gave you so much that I taught you not to value anything." I closed the door and walked to the bus stop with my heart broken in pieces. The way back was the longest of my life. I looked out the window, watching the streets pass by the houses, the families walking together, and I wondered at what moment everything had gone wrong. At what moment had my son stopped seeing me as his mom and started seeing me as an obstacle? When I got home, I sat in the dark living room. I did not turn on the light. I just stayed there in silence, feeling the weight of loneliness. I took the old photograph from my nightstand, Nick at 5 years old, smiling in my arms. "Where are you, my boy?" I whispered. "Where did you go?" That night, I realized something that hurt me more than all of Nick's words, that Fiona had not only won over my son, she had also changed the way he saw me. And the worst part is that he had let her. The following weeks were absolute silence. Nick did not call. Neither did I. It was as if we were both waiting for the other to take the first step, but neither of us did, until one day the phone rang. It was Nick. But he was not calling to apologize. He was calling to inform me that he had put the farm up for sale without consulting me, that he had already found a buyer, and that he expected me to do the right thing and share the money with him. "It is only fair, Mom. I am your only son. That money is mine too." I hung up without answering, and in that moment I knew that the fracture was no longer small. It was an abyss, and I no longer knew if I could cross it back. After that call, I sat by the phone for hours. Nick's words spun in my head like a broken record. "That money is mine too. It is only fair." Fair. What was fair about him deciding on my assets without consulting me? What was fair about me after working a whole life having to justify why I wanted to keep my own money? But I kept looking for excuses for him. I kept telling myself that maybe he was going through a difficult time, that maybe Fiona was pressuring him, that maybe if I were more understanding, more patient, everything would go back to normal. That is what mothers do, right? We look for reasons to forgive the unforgivable. Sometimes we trust too much in those we should not. You have also been disappointed by someone you loved. Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read it. 2 more weeks passed. I did not call Nick, but I did not stop thinking about him either. Every night before sleeping, I looked at that old photograph and wondered if I had been the one to blame for everything. If perhaps by protecting him so much, I had taught him that the world owed him something. If perhaps my sacrifices had created a monster instead of a grateful man. One afternoon, while I was watering the plants on the patio, I heard someone knocking at the door. My heart jumped. "It is Nick," I thought. He came to apologize. I opened with a hopeful smile. It was Fiona alone. She was wearing dark sunglasses even though the day was cloudy, a tight black dress and high heels that made her look even more intimidating. She smelled of expensive perfume that filled my entryway immediately. "Mrs. Parker, can we talk?" She did not say, "Good morning," or "How are you?" She just walked in as if my house were hers too. "Sure, come in," I said, although something in my stomach turned. Fiona sat on my sofa, crossed her legs, and took off her glasses. Her eyes were perfectly made up. Everything about her screamed control power security. I sat in front of her, my hands wet from watering the plants, feeling small in my own house. "Do you want something to drink? Coffee, lemonade?" "No, thanks." I came straight to the point, as if this were a business meeting and not a conversation between family. Fiona took out her phone, swiped her finger across the screen, and showed me an image. It was a brochure for a commercial space in a very well-located area of the city. "This is the business that Nick and I want to open. A gourmet cafe with an artisanal bakery. We already ran the numbers. With an initial investment of $200,000 in 2 years, we would be recovering the investment and generating profits of 30%. $200,000. I felt the air escaping me. "Fiona, I do not have that much money, but you are going to have it. The farm sold for $550,000. The contract is already signed. The money will be available in 3 weeks. I froze. How do you know that? Fiona smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who holds all the cards. "Nick tells me everything, Mrs. Parker. We are a team. We do not have secrets." I felt a rage I did not know I could feel. That farm is mine. I decided to sell it. And I decide what to do with that money. Of course. Nobody says otherwise. We are just asking you to invest in your son's future. It is not an investment. It is a gift. Because if the business fails, I would lose everything. Fiona leaned forward, her eyes fixed on mine. "The business is not going to fail, Mrs. Parker. Nick is very smart, and I have experience in administration. But we need that initial capital. And frankly, I do not understand why, you being his mother, do not want to support him. Because that money is for my old age, for my medical expenses, for emergencies. You are healthy. You are 60 years old. You still have many years ahead. What is the use of having money saved if you do not use it to help your only family?" Fiona, understand that. "No, Mrs. Parker. The one who has to understand is you." Her voice became harder. "Nick is very hurt. He feels that you do not trust him, that after everything he has been as a son, you deny him this one opportunity to grow. I have never denied Nick anything, except this, the only thing he really needs." I stayed silent. I did not know what to say. Every word that came out of her mouth sounded reasonable, but something inside me screamed that this was not right. Fiona sighed as if she were dealing with a difficult person. "Look, Mrs. Parker, I do not want to fight with you, but I need you to understand something. Nick is my husband, and my job is to protect him, support him, and make sure he gets what he deserves. If you do not want to be part of that, it is fine, but do not expect Nick to keep coming to visit you like before." It was a threat disguised as a civilized conversation, but a threat nonetheless. "Are you telling me that if I do not give you the money, Nick is going to stop seeing me?" I am not saying that. I am just saying that relationships are built on reciprocity, and if you only take but never give, that I only take. The rage exploded inside me. I gave my whole life to that boy. I worked until I destroyed my hands so he could study. I lived in a house that was falling apart while I paid his tuition. Fiona did not flinch. "Yes, we already know that. Nick has told me all that, many times. And believe me, Mrs. Parker, sometimes I feel that you use those sacrifices as chains to keep him tied to a feeling of eternal guilt." Her words hit me like slaps. "That is not true. No." "Then prove. Prove that you trust him, that you support him unconditionally, that you were not only a mother when he was a child, but that you continue to be one now that he is an adult. I felt dizzy. Everything she said sounded logical, but at the same time, deeply wrong. And I did not know how to defend myself. I need to think about it, I said with a weak voice. Of course, take your time, but not too much because the space is not going to wait for us forever. There are other people interested. Fiona stood up, put on her dark glasses, and walked towards the door. Before leaving, she turned around. Oh, and Mrs. Parker Nick does not know I came. I prefer this to stay between us. I do not want him to think that his mother needs me to come convince her to help him. It would be humiliating for him. And she left. I stayed sitting in that living room feeling that something inside me had broken. I did not know if it was my dignity, my sanity, or simply the last hope of getting my son back. During the following days, I could not sleep well. I tossed and turned in bed, thinking about Fiona's words. Was she right? Was I a selfish mother for wanting to keep my money? Was I using my past sacrifices as emotional weapons? One morning at 3 a.m, I got up and took out all the papers from the sale of the farm. I spread them out on the kitchen table. $550,000. It was more money than I had ever had in my life. With that, I could live peacefully for the next 10-15 years. I could pay doctors if I got sick. I could travel a little. I could finally rest. But I could also give it to Nick. I could be the mother he needed me to be. I could prove to him that I loved him more than any money. And maybe that would make him be my son again. I picked up the phone. I dialed his number. It was 3:20 a.m, but I did not care. Nick answered with a sleepy voice. Mom, what happened? Are you okay? I am fine, son. I just needed to hear your voice. Silence on the other end. Is something wrong, Nick? I have been thinking. About the business, about the money. I heard him move. Now he was more awake. And I want to support you. Seriously. There was emotion in his voice. Genuine emotion, like when he was a child and I promised him something he really wanted. Yes, I want you to be happy. I want you to achieve your dreams. Mom, you do not know what this means to me. I know, son. That is why I am doing it. I love you, Mom. I love you so much. Those 3 words. How much time had passed without hearing them? I love you too, Nick. We hung up. And for the first time in weeks I could sleep, but it was a restless sleep full of confusing images. Nick as a child turning into an adult, Fiona smiling, my mother telling me something I could not hear, the farm crumbling. The next morning, Nick came to visit me. He brought flowers and donuts. He hugged me at the door, tight, like when he was young. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for believing in me. Fiona stayed in the car. She did not get out. She just waved at me from the passenger seat with a smile I did not know how to interpret. We sat in the kitchen. Nick unwrapped the donuts, poured coffee, and explained everything about the business to me. He spoke with such enthusiasm that for a moment I saw my son again, the boy who dreamed of being great, the young man who promised me that someday he would give me a better life. It is going to work, Mom. I promise you. In 2 years, I am going to pay you back your money with interest. I do not need you to pay me back, son. It is my gift to you. Nick took my hand. No. This is an investment. You are my partner. When the business takes off, you are going to receive profits. You deserve it. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. 2 weeks later, the money from the farm arrived in my account. $550,000. The numbers on the bank statement seemed unreal to me. I had never seen so much money together. Nick came that same day with papers from the notary, documents that said I was investing $400,000 in the business, that I was a partner with 30% participation. 30%. But I am putting up almost all the initial capital. Yes, Mom, but Fiona and I are going to manage the business work every day. Make it grow. You just put up the money. It is not the same. Something did not add up. But Nick looked at me with those eyes I had known since he was born, and I could not deny him anything. I signed. I transferred the money, and at that moment, without knowing it, I signed my own sentence. During the following month, Nick called me often. He told me about the progress of the space, the permits, the decoration, the suppliers. I listened happily, feeling that I had finally made the right decision. Until one day the calls became less frequent again and then stopped completely. When I tried to call him, it went to voicemail. When I wrote him messages, he answered with one-word answers. Busy talk later. 3 weeks passed without seeing him. I decided to go to the space. I wanted to see how everything was going. I wanted to feel part of that project that I had made possible. When I arrived, I found something I did not expect. The place was closed. There was a sign that said opening soon, but inside through the glass I could see that they had barely made minimal repairs. Some tables, a half-finished counter, nothing that justified an investment of $400,000. I knocked on the glass. Nobody answered. I called Nick. He did not answer. I wrote to him, "Son, I am at the shop. Is everything okay?" Half an hour later, he answered me. "Yes, Mom. We are just waiting for some final permits. Do not worry," but I did worry. That night, I could not sleep. Something was not right. I could feel it. The next morning, I decided to do something I never thought I would do: investigate. I went to the bank and asked for the history of the transfer I made. The money had been deposited into an account in the name of Nick and Fiona. Up to there, everything normal. But then I asked to speak with a financial advisor. I told him my situation. He suggested that I investigate the movements of that account, but I needed legal authorization for that. "Ma'am, if you are a partner in the business, you should have access to financial statements." "Have they given you any report?" "No. They had not given me anything." I returned home with a weight in my chest. I took out the papers I signed with the notary. I read them carefully this time, and then I saw it. In small print in a clause at the end, it said that I, as a partner, had the right to receive profits only after the initial investment and associated operating expenses were recovered, and that the administration of the business remained completely in the hands of Nicholas Parker and Fiona Gutierrez without the need for consultation or approval from other partners. In other words, I had put up the money, but I had no control over how it was used. I sat on the floor of my living room with the papers in my hands, and I cried. I did not cry out of sadness. I cried out of rage. Rage against myself for having been so naive, for having wanted to believe, for having put my mother's love above common sense. I picked up the phone and dialed Nick. This time I was going to demand answers. But what I did not know is that that call was going to trigger something much worse, something that was going to change me forever. Nick answered on the third ring. His voice sounded irritated. "What is it, Mom? I am in a meeting. I need to talk to you. It is urgent. I cannot right now. I will call you tonight. No, Nick. Now." I went to the shop. I saw that there is barely any progress, and I read the papers I signed well. "I need you to explain to me what is happening." Silence on the other end, a long silence that made my skin crawl. "Mom, things take time. You cannot expect everything to be ready in a month. I do not expect that. But I do expect transparency. I am your partner. I invested almost all my money. I have a right to know what it is being used for. Now you are going to audit me. Now it turns out you do not trust me. It is not a lack of trust, Nick. It is common sense. You know what, Mom, Fiona was right. You did not give that money from the heart. You gave it with conditions, with suspicions, with a desire to control. That is not true. Of course it is. And do you know what is the worst part? That you make me feel like a thief, as if I had taken something from you, when the only thing I did was accept the support of my own mother. Nick, I do not want to talk right now. When you calm down, we will talk." And he hung up. I stayed with the phone in my hand, trembling with frustration. How was it possible that he made me feel guilty for asking for explanations about my own money? I decided to take action. If Nick was not going to give me answers, I would look for them myself. The next day, I hired an accountant, an older gentleman that a neighbor recommended. I explained the situation to him. I showed him the papers. He read them carefully, shaking his head from side to side. "Mrs. Parker, this contract is designed to protect the administrators, not you. Technically, they can use your money however they want, and you cannot claim anything until the initial investment is recovered, which can take years. Or never happen. Never. And what can I do? Legally, not much. You signed accepting those terms. The only thing you can do is request a detailed financial statement. They are obligated to provide it to you, and if you discover irregularities, you could sue. But that would take time and money." I left that office feeling like the world was crashing down on me. I had lost my money, and even worse, I had lost my son. During the following days, I tried to communicate with Nick several times. Calls, messages, emails, nothing. It was as if I no longer existed to him. Until one afternoon when I was returning from the market, I saw Nick's car parked in front of my house. My heart jumped with hope. He came to talk. He came to explain to me. I entered the house and found them both sitting in my living room, Nick and Fiona. She had a folder in her hands. He looked at me with a cold expression I had never seen on him. "Hello, Mom. You arrived at a good time. We need to talk. Of course, son. I want to talk to you too. Sit down." I sat in front of them with the market bag still in my hands. Fiona opened the folder and took out several papers. "Mrs. Parker, we brought you the financial statement you asked for. I asked for that, yes, through your accountant. Mr. Gutierrez, right?" I froze. How did they know about the accountant? Nick leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and his hands clasped. His look was hard. "Mom, are you investigating me?" "I am not investigating you. I just wanted to understand." "Understand what? If I am stealing from you? If I am a thief, I never said that. You do not need to say it. Your actions say it all." Fiona cleared her throat and put the papers on the coffee table. "Here is everything, Mrs. Parker, broken down. The $400,000 were distributed like this. $150,000 on the lease of the space, $50,000 on permits and licenses, $80,000 on equipment and furniture, $40,000 on remodeling, $30,000 on advertising, and $50,000 remained as working capital, $50,000 on advertising. But the place has not even opened. Digital advertising. Mrs. Parker, social media, brand positioning, all that is done before opening. Something did not add up. $50,000 on advertising for something that did not exist yet. And can I see the receipts for those expenses?" Fiona smiled with that smile I already knew, the smile that did not reach her eyes. "Of course, but you will have to request them formally through your lawyer following the procedure established by the contract. As a minority partner, you have the right to an annual review, not quarterly. Annual. But it has barely been a month." "Exactly. That is why we suggest you have patience." Nick got up from the sofa, walked to the window, and stood there, turning his back on me. "Mom, I cannot believe you have come to this, that you treat me as if I were a criminal." "Nick, I just want to protect the little I have left, the little you have left." He turned around with a flushed face. "You had more than $500,000 more money than I have seen in my life, and still you act as if you were in poverty because that money was for my old age. Your old age, always your old age. And what about my future? What about my dreams? What about what I need? Nick, you have youth, health, a job, and you have money that you do not want to share. Do you know how many times Fiona and I have had to borrow because we do not have enough? Do you know how many opportunities we have lost because we do not have capital, while you are sitting in your house saving money as if it were gold? His words pierced me like knives. I gave you $400,000 that now you want back because you do not trust me, because you have never trusted me. That is not true, son. Yes, it is. All my life, I have had to prove that I am enough, that I am worth something, that I deserve your approval, and it is never enough. Never. I got up from the sofa with my legs trembling. I have always been proud of you, Nick, always. No, you have been proud of the idea of me, of the perfect son who sacrificed your life to raise, but of the real man I am, with defects and needs of that one, you have never been proud. I did not know what to say. The words got stuck in my throat. Fiona got up too, gathered the papers and put them in the folder. Mrs. Parker, I think you need time to calm down, but I am going to tell you something with all due respect. Nick is a wonderful, hardworking, honest, ambitious man, and I am not going to allow anyone, not even his mother, to make him feel less than he is. I have never wanted to make him feel like that. But you do with every doubt, with every question, with every gesture that says, I do not trust you. Nick walked to the door. Fiona followed him. Son, wait. But he did not stop. He opened the door and left without turning back. Fiona stayed a moment in the doorway. She looked at me with an expression I could not decipher. Was it compassion? Was it triumph? Give him space, Mrs. Parker. Let him process all this. And when you are ready to treat him like the adult, he is not like the child he is no longer. Maybe you can fix things. And she closed the door. I stayed alone in that living room. The market bags were still on the floor. The milk had started to get warm. The bread had been crushed. But I did not move. I could not move. How had I reached this point? How had I gone from being the loving mother who sacrificed herself for her son to being the villain of this story? That night, I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. I thought about every word Nick had said to me, about every accusation. Was he right? Had I treated him as if he were a thief? Had I made him feel that he was never enough? Or was he simply being manipulated by a woman who knew exactly what buttons to push? At 2 a.m, my phone rang. It was a message from an unknown number. Mrs. Parker, I am Patricia Fiona's sister. I need to speak with you. It is important. Can we meet tomorrow? My heart skipped a beat. Fiona's sister. Why would she want to talk to me? I answered. Yes. Where? At the Star Cafe at 10 a.m. Please do not tell my sister I contacted you. I could not sleep the rest of the night. My mind spun round and round. What would she want to tell me? Would it be a trap? Or would it be someone who would finally tell me the truth? At 9 a.m, I was already ready. I put on a simple dress, tied back my hair, and left for the cafe. I arrived 15 minutes early. I ordered a coffee that I did not drink. I just waited, hands sweating and heart beating fast. At 10 o'clock sharp, a woman of about 40 entered. She looked like Fiona, but her expression was different, softer, more human. She saw me and walked straight to my table. Mrs. Parker. Yes, Patricia. Yes, thank you for coming. She sat in front of me. She ordered a tea, and when the waitress left, she leaned forward and spoke to me in a low voice. Mrs. Parker, what I am about to tell you could change everything, but I need you to promise me that you are going to listen to me until the end before reacting. I promise. Patricia took a deep breath. My sister Fiona, she has a history that Nick does not know. The coffee churned in my stomach. What kind of history? 5 years ago, Fiona married an older man, a widowed businessman with quite a bit of money. They divorced 2 years later. He was left in ruin. She kept the house, the car, and a good part of his business. How manipulation. Documents signed during the marriage. Loans that were never paid back. Everything very legal but morally questionable. I felt a chill. And why are you telling me this? Because when I found out she married Nick, I tried to warn him, but Fiona threatened me. She told me that if I opened my mouth, she would destroy my reputation. She has resources, she knows people, she knows how to do damage. And why do you dare to speak now?" Patricia looked at me with eyes full of guilt. Because yesterday I heard a conversation between her and her friend. They were talking about you, about the money you invested, and Mrs. Parker, they have no plans to open that business. The world stopped. What? The money is already spent, most of it paying personal debts on a new car for Fiona, on renovations for her house, all disguised as business expenses. It cannot be. Yes, it can. And the worst part is that Nick, he knows. Maybe at first he did not know, but now he does. And he is choosing to believe her instead of protecting you. I felt like I was running out of air. "Do you have proof of this?" Patricia took out her phone. She showed me photographs. Fiona's new car, a silver Mercedes-Benz Shiny. Purchase date 3 weeks ago. Price $80,000. They bought that car after you invested in the business. She also showed me photographs of the remodeling of their house. New floors, modern kitchen, expensive furniture. All this was paid for with your money. Mrs. Parker and my sister is telling you that it was spent on the shop. Tears began to roll down my cheeks, not of sadness, of rage. Why are you helping me? What do you gain from this? Patricia looked down. Because I have children and I could not live with myself if I allowed a mother to be scammed like this by her own son. Besides, Fiona has already done enough damage. It is time for someone to stop her. And what do you want me to do? Confront Nick, demand real proof, not fake papers, real invoices, bank statements, and if he refuses, then you will know that you have already lost him. I wiped my tears with a napkin. I already lost him, Patricia. I lost him a long time ago. Maybe there is still a part of him that can wake up, but he needs to see the truth, and he needs you to be strong. Patricia stood up. "Mrs. Parker, if you need anything else, here is my number, but please do not mention that we spoke. Fiona can be dangerous when she feels threatened." And she left. I stayed alone in that cafe looking at the photographs on my phone that Patricia had sent me. The car, the house, the life of luxury that Nick and Fiona were living with my money, with the money from my parents' farm, with the money from my old age, with the money from my sacrifices. I left that cafe with something I had not felt in months: clarity. I was no longer confused. I no longer wondered if I was the guilty one. I no longer doubted my instinct. Now I knew the truth. And the truth had freed me from the weight of guilt, but it had also broken my heart into 1,000 pieces. That afternoon I made a decision. I was going to confront Nick not with tears or pleas, but with evidence, with facts, with the dignity of a mother who had been betrayed, but who was not going to let herself be destroyed. I dialed his number. This time he answered. "What do you want, Mom? I want you to come to my house. Now. We need to talk. I already told you I do not want to talk. Until what Nick come. Or I promise you that what I have to tell you, you are going to hear in front of a judge." Silence. "I am on my way." I hung up, and I waited. I waited with the photographs on my phone, with the accountant's papers on the table, with the old photograph of Nick as a child in my hands. I was going to confront my son. I was going to demand the truth. And if he chose Fiona over me, then I was going to have to accept that the boy I raised no longer existed, that in his place was a stranger who had stolen from me more than money. He had stolen the illusion that a mother's love was enough to save a son. Nick arrived 40 minutes later. He entered my house without knocking, as if he still had the right to do so. Fiona came behind him with her arms crossed and that expression of annoyance that was already so familiar to me. "And now what, Mom? What is so urgent that you threaten me with lawyers?" I did not answer immediately. I let them in. I closed the door, and I walked to the kitchen table where I had prepared everything. "Sit down. I prefer to stand," said Fiona. "I was not asking you." My voice sounded different, firmer, colder. Fiona blinked in surprise, but she sat down. Nick, too. I remained standing in front of them with my arms crossed. "Nick, I'm going to ask you a question." And I want you to answer me looking me in the eyes. Was the money I invested in your business really used for the shop? We already showed you the financial statement. I did not ask you for papers. I asked you, look me in the eyes and tell me. Was that money used for the business? Nick looked away, and in that moment I knew with absolute certainty. I took out my phone. I opened the photographs Patricia had sent me. I put the phone on the table in front of them. That silver Mercedes. When did you buy it? Fiona went pale. Nick looked at the photographs and then at me. Mom, I can explain. Explain then. Explain to me how you bought a car for almost $80,000 if supposedly all the money was invested in the business, that car. We financed it. With what down payment? With what collateral? You told me you had no capital. Silence. I swiped the phone to show the photographs of the remodeling of their house. And this new floors, modern kitchen, designer furniture. You did all this after I invested in your business. Did you finance it too? Nick ran his hands through his hair. He was nervous. He was sweating. Mom, some things we paid with savings. Do not lie to me. My voice thundered in that kitchen. Do not dare lie to me in my own house after stealing from me. I did not steal anything from you. That money you gave to me. You invested it in my business. What business, Nick? What business? I took out more photographs, images of the shop, taken that same morning. I went to the shop early today. It is still the same. No progress, no new furniture, nothing. Where is the $80,000 of equipment and furniture? Where is the $40,000 for remodeling? Fiona stood up from the chair. Mrs. Parker, you do not understand how businesses work. There are expenses that are not visible. Shut up, I screamed at her for the first time in my life. Do not speak to me. You have no right to speak to me after what you have done. Mom, do not talk to my wife like that. Your wife. Your wife. I laughed bitterly. Your wife is a professional scammer, Nick, and you know it. Either you are her accomplice or you are her idiot. You decide which of the two things you want to be. Fiona took a step toward me with her eyes blazing. Watch what you say, Mrs. Parker. You could get into trouble. Trouble. What are you going to do to me? Sue me for telling the truth. Go ahead, do it, because I am going to sue you too, for fraud, for scamming, and I am going to make sure everyone knows who you really are. Mom, that is enough. Nick stood up. No, it is not enough. Do you know what I know, Nick? I know your wife has done this before with her first husband. She left him in ruin, and now she is doing the same to me, with you as an accomplice. Nick looked at me with an expression I could not decipher. Was it surprise or was it guilt? Because he knew it was true. That is a lie. Someone is lying to you. Who is lying to me? Nick, your Aunt Patricia. She was the one who told me. Your own sister-in-law had the decency to warn me before you took every last dollar. Fiona turned to Nick, furious. Your Aunt Patricia. That snake. She has always been jealous of me. She has always wanted to destroy me. Destroy you, you destroy yourself, Fiona, with your lies, with your greed. Fiona walked toward me. There was something dangerous in her eyes. Listen to me well, Mrs. Parker. You signed those papers voluntarily. Nobody forced you. And if you regret it now, that is your problem. But do not come accusing us of being thieves. I am not accusing you. I am stating facts. You are thieves. Nick took me by the arm. Mom, calm down. We can fix this. We can talk. I pulled away with a sharp movement. There is nothing to fix, Nick, and there is nothing to talk about. I want my money back. The $400,000, or the real receipts for every expense, invoices, bank statements, everything. You have 1 week. We do not have that money available right now. Then sell the car, sell the furniture, mortgage the house if necessary. But you are going to return what is mine. Fiona let out a dry laugh. That is not going to happen, Mrs. Parker. Read the contract. There is no immediate repayment clause. Then I will see you in court. Perfect. See you there. But I warn you that trials are long, expensive, and you are going to spend the rest of your money on lawyers. In the end, you are not going to get anything. I felt something inside me break. She was right. The system was designed to protect people like them. And I, an older woman without resources, was going to lose. But I was not going to let them see me weak. Maybe I will not recover my money, but I am going to recover my dignity. And I am going to make sure everyone knows who you are. Starting with your family, Nick, your Uncle Robert, your cousins. Everyone is going to know that my son stole from me. I did not steal from you. Yes, you did. You stole from me. You lied to me. And worse yet, you allowed this woman to use me as if I were a bank they could loot without consequences. Nick looked at me with watery eyes. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the boy he was. But it was only a moment. Mom, I did not want us to come to this. But we did. Because of your decisions. Because of your cowardice. I am not a coward. Yes, you are. A brave man protects his mother. A brave man does not let anyone hurt her. But you chose her over me. And you are going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. Fiona grabbed her purse. Let's go, Nick. We have heard enough. But Nick did not move. He stayed there looking at me with tears rolling down his cheeks. Mom, I love you. I really love you. No, you do not love me. Because if you loved me, you would not have allowed us to reach this point. It is just that you do not understand. Fiona and I have dreams. We have goals. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices. Sacrifices you call stealing from your mother a sacrifice. It is not theft. It is an investment in your life of luxury, in your whims, while I am left with nothing. Nick wiped his tears with the back of his hand. You still have $150,000. You are not on the street. His words hit me like a fist. $150,000. That is what your mother is worth to you. That is what I deserve after giving you my whole life. Mom, it is not like that. Yes, it is, Nick. And the worst of all is that I am to blame. Because I raised you believing that the world owed you something. That you deserved everything without having to make an effort. I gave you so much that I taught you not to value anything. Fiona pulled Nick by the arm. Let's go. Now. We are not going to keep listening to this. Nick looked at me one last time. There was pain in his eyes, but there was also resentment. Goodbye, Mom. And he left. I stayed alone in that kitchen. The silence was deafening. I walked to the window and saw them get into the silver Mercedes. My Mercedes. The car I had paid for without knowing it. I watched them drive away, and in that moment something inside me broke permanently. It was not my heart. That was already broken. It was the illusion, the hope, the faith that a mother's love could save everything. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried. I cried like I had never cried before. I cried for the boy I lost, for the man he became, for all the years I sacrificed, believing I was building something beautiful. I cried for my parents' farm, for that money that represented my only security, for my old age that would now be precarious. I cried for myself, for having been so naive, for having trusted blindly, for having put love above common sense. When I had no tears left, I got up from the floor. I washed my face in the sink. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, and I saw a different woman, a woman who had been betrayed, yes, but who was still standing. I took my phone. I dialed the accountant's number. Mr. Gutierrez, this is Carol Parker. I need you to recommend a lawyer, the best one you know. I am going to sue my son. That night, I took out all the documents, the business papers, the photographs, the text messages, everything, and I prepared my case. I did not know if I was going to win, probably not, but I was not going to stay silent. I was not going to let Nick and Fiona continue with their lives as if they had not destroyed mine. I looked at the old photograph of Nick as a child in my arms, and for the first time in my life, I put it away in a drawer. I did not want to see it anymore, because that boy no longer existed, and I had to stop crying for a ghost. The next morning, I went to the office of the lawyer the accountant recommended. A man of about 50 with gray hair at his temples and a serious look. I told him everything. I showed him everything. He listened in silence. He reviewed the papers. And finally he spoke. "Mrs. Parker, legally, this is complicated. You signed a contract. They can claim that everything was voluntary, that there was no fraud because you knew what you were getting into. But I did not know they were going to use my money to buy a car and remodel their house." I know. "But they are going to say that those were necessary expenses for the development of the business. They are going to invent justifications. And in a civil trial, the burden of proof is on you. So there is nothing I can do." The lawyer leaned back in his chair. "Yes, there is something. We can sue for fraudulent administration, demand a full audit. If we find serious irregularities, we could have a case. But I am going to be honest with you. This is going to take years, and it is going to cost you the rest of your money." "How much?" "To start, $50,000, and that is just the beginning. Between experts' notifications hearings, it could reach $100,000 or more, $100,000, almost everything I had left. And what are my chances of winning 30%, maybe 40% if we get lucky?" I stared at my hands that had worked a whole life, hands that had raised a son, hands that now trembled with rage and frustration. "And if I do not sue, then they keep your money, and you keep $150,000 to live the rest of your life." I left that office without making an immediate decision. I walked through the streets for hours thinking, calculating, weighing. Was it worth spending everything I had left on a legal battle that I would probably lose? Or was it better to accept defeat, keep that money and try to rebuild my life with the little I had left? I arrived at a park. I sat on a bench, and I watched the families walking. Mothers with their children, fathers carrying babies, grandmothers laughing with their grandchildren. And I felt a stab of pain so deep that it almost doubled me over. I was never going to have that. I was never going to have Nick back. I was never going to know my grandchildren if I ever had them. I was never going to feel my son's hug again, because my son was no longer my son. He was a stranger who had stolen from me more than money. He had stolen the illusion that my life had been worth it. When I got home that afternoon, I had made a decision. I was not going to sue. I was not going to spend my last money on lawyers and trials that would only bring me more pain. I was going to keep those $150,000. I was going to live with the minimum. I was going to watch every dollar as if it were gold. And above all, I was going to cut all contact with Nick. No more calls, no more messages, no more hopes of reconciliation. He had made his choice, and I had to make mine. The choice to survive. The choice to protect the little I had left. The choice to recover my dignity, even if it was at the cost of my heart. That night before sleeping, I wrote a letter that I would never send, but that I needed to write. "Nick, I do not know at what moment I lost you. Maybe it was when you met Fiona. Maybe it was long before when I taught you that you could have everything without giving anything. Maybe it was me who created this stranger you became. I am not going to chase you anymore. I am not going to beg you anymore. I am not going to wait for you to wake up one day and realize what you did. I let you go with your Mercedes and your expensive furniture, with your lies and your greed, with the woman who uses you and you let her. I let you go because I can no longer carry the weight of loving you more than you love me. But I want you to know something. When I am no longer here, when I grow old and get sick and die alone, because I spent on you the years I should have saved for myself, I want you to remember this letter. And I want you to understand that I did not die poor because of bad luck. I died poor because I love my son more than he deserved. Your mother." I put the letter in the drawer next to the old photograph and tried to sleep. But that night, sleep did not come easily because I knew the worst was yet to come. 3 weeks of absolute silence passed. 3 weeks where my phone did not ring, where I did not receive even a message, where Nick's absence became so big that it filled every corner of my house. I did not seek contact either. I had promised to let him go, and I was keeping that promise. Although every night it was hard for me to breathe from the pain I kept, the $150,000 I had left in a savings account. I calculated how much I could spend a month so that it would last me as long as possible. $1,500. That was my budget. With that, I had to cover food, utilities, medicine, everything. It was living like when Nick was a child, again counting every dollar, denying myself basic things, surviving instead of living. But at least it was my decision. I was no longer giving my money away to someone who did not value it. One afternoon, while I was returning from the market with my 2 bags of the cheapest things I found, I saw the silver Mercedes parked in front of my house. My heart raced. Nick had come. I quickened my pace. Maybe he had reconsidered. Maybe he came to apologize. Maybe... When I reached the door, I found it ajar. That was not right. I always locked it. I pushed the door slowly with my heart beating in my ears, and what I saw froze my blood. Nick and Fiona were inside my house. They had not asked for my permission. They had not knocked. They had simply entered as if it were their right. Nick was in the living room going through papers on my desk. Fiona was going up the stairs toward my bedroom. "What are you doing here?" My voice sounded higher pitched than I wanted. "How did you get in?" Nick turned around. There was no guilt on his face, only determination. "I have a key, Mom. Did you forget already that key is for emergencies, not for you to enter my house without permission?" Fiona came down the stairs with something in her hands. It was my bank book, the one I kept in my nightstand. "What are you doing with that?" "Give it back to me." I ran toward her, but Nick stepped in the way. "Mom, calm down. We just want to talk. You entered my house without permission and you are going through my things. We need to know how much money you have left to know if you can invest more in the business." I could not believe what I was hearing. Invest more. "Are you crazy? I already lost $400,000 with you." Fiona opened the book and read the balance. $148,000. It is not much, but it could help. Give me that. I tried to snatch it from her, but she held it up out of my reach. "Mrs. Parker, be reasonable. The business needs more capital. If you invest this, we could open in 2 months and start generating profits. You would recover your investment." "No. That money is all I have left to live." Nick grabbed me by the shoulders. His grip was firm, too firm. "Mom, think about it carefully. What are you going to do with $150,000? It is not enough for anything. On the other hand, if you invest in us, we could multiply that money. Let me go." I broke free from his grip with a sharp movement. My heart was beating uncontrollably. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. "Get out of my house, now." "We are not leaving until we talk about this calmly," said Fiona, sitting on my sofa as if she were the owner. "This is my house and I'm telling you to leave." Nick locked the front door. The sound of the latch made my skin crawl. "Mom, you are going to listen to us. Enough with your drama." My drama. You are the ones who entered my house without permission. It is just that we do not know how to talk to you anymore. Every time we try to have a normal conversation, you get hysterical. I am not hysterical. I am defending the little I have left. Fiona sighed as if she were dealing with a spoiled child. "Mrs. Parker, look at yourself. You live alone in this old house. You have no friends, you have no family that visits you. Nick and I are the only thing you have. Do you really want to kick us out of your life for money?" Her words hit me in a vulnerable place because she was right about something. I was alone, very alone. I am not kicking you out for money. I am kicking you out because you lied to me, because you stole from me. Nobody stole anything from you, said Nick, getting closer. That money was invested and it is going to bear fruit. But we need more time and more capital. I do not have more capital. Yes, you do. You have this house. I froze. What Fiona took some papers out of her purse. She spread them out on the table. You could put this house as collateral for a loan. With the value of the property, we could get at least $300,000 more. Mortgage my house. Are you crazy? It is not mortgaging it. It is using it as collateral. Once the business works, we pay the loan and you get your house back. It is a win-win. No, this house is the only thing I have left. It is the roof over my head. Nick knelt in front of me. He took my hands. His eyes were wet. Mom, please, I beg you. Trust me one more time, just one more time. I promise you that this time it is going to work. I promise you that I am going to pay you back everything, with interest. You are going to live peacefully the rest of your life. But I need you to trust me. I looked into his eyes, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the boy he was, of the boy who hugged me when he was afraid, of the boy who promised me he would never leave me alone. But it was only a moment. No. Nick let go of my hands. His expression changed. There was no longer a plea. There was coldness. It is okay. Then this is going to get difficult. What does that mean? Fiona got up from the sofa. It means that if you do not want to cooperate voluntarily, we will have to look for other ways. What other ways? Legal. You are a partner in the business. You signed papers. If the business requires more capital and you refuse to contribute it, we could sue you for non-compliance. That is ridiculous. I already contributed $400,000. Yes, but the contract states that partners must contribute proportionally according to the needs of the business. And the needs have changed. I could not believe what I was hearing. You had set a trap for me from the beginning. You planned this from the start. It was all a trap. Nick stood up. There was no longer emotion on his face. It was not a trap, Mom. It was an opportunity, and you wasted it with your distrust. My distrust. You stole from me. Nobody stole from you. You are paranoid, you are bitter, and you are ruining your relationship with me for money. It is not for money. It is for respect, for honesty, for the minimum a mother deserves from her son. Nick took a step toward me. There was something dark in his eyes, something I had never seen. Do you know what you deserve, Mom? You deserve to be alone, because that is what you have done all your life. Suffocate me with your love. Make me feel guilty for existing. Charge me for every sacrifice as if they were debts I can never pay. That is not true. Yes, it is. All my life I have carried the weight of your expectations, of your martyrdom, of your I sacrificed myself for you. I am tired. I want to be free. Free to rob me. It is not theft. It is justice. It is collecting what you owe me for having used me as your life purpose for 30 years. His words pierced me like burning knives. I never used you. Of course you did. You used me to feel important, to feel necessary. And now that I grew up and I do not need you anymore, you do not know what to do with your life. That is why you cling to the money, because it is the only thing you have left. Tears started rolling down my cheeks, not of sadness, of rage. You are right about one thing, Nick. I do not need you anymore. But you still need my money, and that says everything there is to know about who is the parasite here. Nick raised his hand, and for a second I thought he was going to hit me. Fiona stopped him. No, not here. That is what she wants, for you to hit her so she can report you. Nick lowered his hand, but in his eyes I saw something worse than violence. I saw hate. Give me the money, Mom. Now. No. Give me the damn money. No. Nick walked to my desk. He started opening drawers, taking out papers, looking for something, Leave my things alone. I ran toward him, but Fiona blocked my path. Stay still, Mrs. Parker. This is going to be resolved one way or another. Nick found my checkbook. He took it. No. Give that back to me. You are going to sign a check for $140,000. Now. Never. You are going to sign it. He pushed me toward the table. He put the checkbook in front of me. He put a pen in my hand. Sign. No. Nick squeezed my arm. Hard. So hard I felt like he was going to leave a mark. Sign, or I swear you are going to regret it. Let me go. You are hurting me. Sign. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you. What would you have done in my place? In that moment, something inside me broke. It was not pain. It was not fear. It was anger. An anger I did not know I could feel. I took the pen, and instead of signing the check, I threw it at his face. Go to hell. Nick stepped back, touching his face. The pen had left a red mark near his eye, and then it happened. His hand went up and came down on my cheek. A slap. The sound resonated throughout the house. It was not the pain that broke me. It was the betrayal. My son had hit me. Before I could process what had just happened, his hand went up again, and again, and again. 5 times. 5 slaps that were not just on my face. They were on my heart, on my soul, on everything I had been as a mother. I fell to the floor. My hands trembled, my face burned, my ears rang, and I heard the words I will never forget. Get this filthy old woman out of here. Fiona clapped. She literally clapped as if she were in a theater. Well done, babe. It was about time you set limits with her. I stayed on the floor, trembling. I could not move. I could not speak. I could only feel the burning on my face and the ice in my heart. Nick looked at me from above. There was not even hate in his eyes anymore, only indifference. Get up, Mom, and go to your room. We need to talk alone about how we are going to resolve this. With my legs trembling, I got up. I said nothing. I did not look at them. I just walked to my room as if I were a ghost. I closed the door. I lay on the bed. And I stayed there staring at the ceiling, feeling my world crumbling. I could hear them talking downstairs. Their voices were calm now. They were planning something. They were deciding my fate as if I did not exist. 10 minutes. That was all the time that passed before the doorbell rang. I heard Nick curse. I heard his steps toward the door. I heard the door open. And then I heard silence. A heavy silence. A silence that meant something. I got up from the bed. I opened my bedroom door slowly, and I went down the stairs. What I saw filled me with a satisfaction I did not know I was capable of feeling. Nick was on his knees in the entryway crying, begging. Please, please, Mom, forgive me. I did not mean to, please. In front of him were 2 police officers and a man with a briefcase, the sheriff's deputy. I looked toward the window. I saw the patrol car parked in front of my house, and I understood. Someone had called the police. Someone had heard the screams, the slaps, the insults. Maybe it was the neighbor, Mrs. Mendez, who was always aware of everything. Maybe it was someone passing by on the street. It did not matter who. What mattered is that they had arrived. One of the officers approached me. He saw my swollen face, the red marks, the watery eyes. Ma'am, are you okay? Did this man assault you? I did not answer immediately. I looked at Nick. I saw his pleading eyes. I saw his tears. I saw his terror. And for a moment, I felt pity. But only for a moment. Yes, my son hit me. Nick sobbed louder. Mom, no. Please do not do this. The officer turned to him. Sir, you are going to have to come with us. No, officer. It was a misunderstanding. We were arguing and... The marks on the lady's face are not a misunderstanding. It is domestic violence. You have to come with us. Fiona came running out of the living room. This is ridiculous. She provoked him. She started everything. The second officer stopped her. Ma'am, calm down. Are you family? I am his wife. Were you present during the assault? Fiona hesitated. Yes, but... Then you also have to come to give a statement. But we did not do anything wrong. The man with the briefcase approached me. He spoke with a professional but kind voice. Mrs. Parker, I am Officer Ramirez from the Sheriff's Department. I have an eviction order for these two people. Do you confirm that they are Nicholas Parker and Fiona Gutierrez? My heart beat fast. Eviction order. From where the officer showed me some papers from the property located at 345 Oak Street. According to our records, that property is in the bank's name with a mortgage loan that has not been paid in 3 months. The bank requested the eviction. I looked at Nick. His face was pale. You did not pay the mortgage on your house. He did not answer. He just sobbed. The officer continued. You have 4 hours to vacate the property. After that time, the bank will take possession, and any belongings left inside will be property of the bank. Fiona screamed. This is a trap. Someone set a trap for us, ma'am. The bank followed the legal process. There were notifications, warnings. You ignored everything. Nick looked at me with desperate eyes. Mom, please help us. We have nowhere to go. The officer lifted him from the floor. Sir, stop begging and come with us. Now, Mom, please, I am your son. I did not answer. I just watched them be escorted to the patrol car. Fiona was shouting insults. Nick was crying like a child. The neighbors had come out to see the show, and I stood there in the entryway of my house watching my son be taken away by the police. I should have felt pain. I should have felt guilt. I should have felt something. But the only thing I felt was peace. A strange, disturbing peace, but peace nonetheless. The officer stayed with me a moment. Ma'am, do you need medical attention? We should document those injuries. Yes, thank you. He called an ambulance. He took photographs of my face. He made me sign some papers. Mrs. Parker, with this evidence, your son could face charges for family violence. Do you wish to proceed with a formal complaint? I looked toward the patrol car. Nick looked at me from the window with a destroyed face, and I asked myself a question I never thought I would ask myself. How far does a mother's love go? The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. The paramedics checked my face. They took my vital signs. They asked me if I wanted to go to the hospital. I told them no. I just needed them to document the injuries. They took photographs from various angles. The red marks were already turning into bruises. My left cheek was swollen. I had a small cut on my lip that I had not noticed until the paramedic cleaned it with alcohol. Ma'am, these injuries are consistent with physical aggression. You should file a formal complaint. I will think about it. When they left, I stayed alone in my house. Mrs. Mendez, my neighbor, knocked on the door. Carol, are you okay? I saw everything. It was horrible. I was the one who called the police. I hope I did not cause you trouble. I hugged her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt that someone was taking care of me. You did not cause me trouble, Lupita. You saved me. That boy, your son. I never thought he was capable of something like that. I always saw him as so polite, so proper. I did not think so either. But people change. Or maybe we never really knew them. Lupita made me chamomile tea. We sat in my living room, and for the first time in months, I spoke. I told her everything. The money, the lies, the manipulation, everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she took my hand. Carol, you are not to blame. You did what any mother would do, trust her son. But he made decisions. He chose this path, and now he has to face the consequences. And what if it was me who raised him like that? What if it was me who taught him that he could have everything without giving anything maybe? But he is an adult. He is 30 years old. You can no longer carry his mistakes as if they were yours. Lupita stayed with me until it got dark. When she left, I locked the door and put on the safety latch. I sat on the sofa, and for the first time since all this started, I breathed deeply. My son had hit me. My son had stolen from me. My son had chosen money over me. But I was still alive. I was still standing. and I still had a little dignity left. That night, I made a decision. I was not going to report Nick for domestic violence. Not because I forgave him, but because I did not want to give him the power to keep occupying my thoughts, my time, my energy. He had already taken enough from me. I was not going to give him more, but I was going to do something I should have done years ago. The next day, I went to a notary. I asked to change my will. The notary was the same one who had drafted the business contract. When he saw my face with the bruises still visible, he asked nothing. He just nodded. "What do you wish to change, Mrs. Parker, everything?" "I want to completely disinherit my son, Nicholas Parker. And I want everything I have, this house, the money I have left, everything to pass to my sister Carmen." The notary wrote in silence. "Are you sure of this decision completely?" "I understand. I am going to need you to sign here, here, and here." I signed without hesitation. Every signature felt like recovering a piece of myself. "When does it go into effect?" "Immediately. As of today, your son is no longer a beneficiary of your estate." I left that notary's office feeling lighter than I had felt in months. Nick could no longer expect anything from me when I died. He could no longer count on an inheritance he did not deserve. He could no longer sell my house to pay his debts. Everything was going to be for Carmen, my older sister, the one who was always there even though she lived far away, the one who called me every week to know how I was, the one who never asked me for anything but always offered me everything. When I got home, I called Carmen. She lived in Chicago with her husband and her 2 children. We had not seen each other in person for a year. "Carol, what happened?" "You sound strange," and I told her everything, from the beginning. Carmen cried. She got angry. She cursed Nick with words I had never heard from her. "Why didn't you tell me anything before I would have gone? I would have helped you." Because I was ashamed to admit that my son had scammed me, that he had hit me, that all my sacrifice meant nothing to him. "Carol, listen to me well. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing. You were an extraordinary mother, and if Nick does not value it, that is his problem, not yours. I changed my will. Everything I have is for you now." Carmen kept silent for a moment. "I do not need your inheritance, Carol. I need you to be okay, to be safe, not to be alone. I am not alone. I have you, and you will always have me. Hey, what do you think if next month I come to visit you, I will stay a week? We can talk, eat, go for walks, like when we were girls." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but this time they were different tears. Not of pain, of relief. I would love that, Carmen. I would love that very much. That night, I slept better than I had slept in months. I did not dream of Nick. I did not dream of the lost money. I did not dream of anything. I just rested. The next morning, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Mom, it is me. I am using a friend's phone. Please answer me. I need to talk to you. It is urgent." I did not answer. 10 minutes later, another message. "Mom, we got evicted. We have nowhere to sleep. Fiona is desperate. Please help us, just for a few days until we find something." I deleted the message. Throughout the day, more messages arrived. More pleas, more promises. "I am going to change, Mom, I swear. Fiona and I are going to separate. I already understood that she was the problem. Please do not abandon me. You are my mom. Moms do not abandon their children." That last message hurt me because he was right about something. Mothers do not abandon their children, but children do abandon their mothers, and they do it without thinking twice. In the afternoon, someone knocked on the door. I looked through the window. It was Nick. He was alone without Fiona. He was wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago. He looked disheveled, tired, defeated. He knocked several times. "Mom, I know you are there. Please open up. I just want to talk." I did not open. "Mom, please forgive me. Forgive me for everything. I was an idiot, a horrible son, but I need you. I have no one else. I stayed on the other side of the door with my hand on the knob, feeling my heart breaking. "Mom, if you do not forgive me, I understand, but at least let me sleep on your sofa. Just one night. I promise you tomorrow I will leave and never bother you again." I closed my eyes, I took a deep breath, and I did not open. "Mom. Mom, please, it is getting cold. I do not have money for a hotel." His voice cracked. He started crying on the other side of the door. "I am so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. I was a monster to you. I let myself be manipulated. I lost my mind. But I swear to you that I am going to change. Give me a chance. Just one." Every word was a knife in my chest, but I did not open, because I knew that if I opened that door, everything would start again. The promises, the lies, the cycle of hope and disappointment, and I no longer had the strength for that cycle. Nick stayed there for almost an hour, knocking, begging, crying, until finally he gave up. "It is okay, Mom, I understand. I already did too much damage. I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know something. I did love you, in my own way, broken and selfish, but I loved you. And I'm going to have to live the rest of my life knowing that I destroyed the only good thing I had." I heard his steps walking away. I looked through the window and saw him walk down the street, shoulders slumped without looking back. And I felt something I did not expect to feel. Peace. Not joy, not satisfaction, just peace. The peace of knowing I had done the right thing, that I had protected myself, that I had set limits. That night, I took the old photograph out of the drawer. I looked at it one last time. Nick, at 5 years old, smiling in my arms. And I spoke to him as if that boy could hear me. "I loved you with all my heart. I did everything I could. But you grew up and made your own decisions. And those decisions brought you here. I can no longer save you. I can no longer carry you. I can no longer sacrifice myself anymore." I folded the photograph carefully, and I put it in an envelope. I did not throw it away, because that boy existed, and that love was real. But that boy was no longer there, and I had to accept it. During the following days, life began to find a new rhythm, a slower, quieter, but more honest rhythm. I woke up early. I watered my plants. I prepared my coffee. I read the newspaper on the patio. Lupita came to visit me. We shared food. We talked about simple things, about the weather, about the news, about her grandchildren. Carmen called me every 2 days. She told me about her life. She made me laugh with anecdotes about her children. And slowly, very slowly, I began to remember who I was before being Nick's mom. I was Carol, a woman who had worked hard, who had loved deeply, who had made mistakes, but who had done the best she could. A woman who deserved peace, who deserved respect, who deserved to live without guilt. 2 weeks later, I received a call from the lawyer I had consulted weeks ago. "Mrs. Parker, I have news. Your son filed a lawsuit against you for abandonment of a family member in a state of need." My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means he alleges that you have a legal obligation to support him because he has no resources. It is a desperate strategy, and it will very likely not prosper. But I wanted you to be aware. And what do I have to do? Nothing for now. I am going to answer the lawsuit. With the evidence we have of the violence he exercised against you, plus the fact that he is a functional adult without disability, the judge is going to dismiss the case, but the process can take a few months. I hung up feeling a mixture of emotions. Nick had not only hit and robbed me, now he wanted to use the legal system to continue extorting me. But it did not surprise me anymore. It did not hurt like before. Because I had finally understood something fundamental. I had not lost my son. My son had lost himself. And that was not my fault, nor my responsibility, nor my burden to carry. One afternoon while cleaning the attic, I found an old box. Inside were letters letters Nick had written to me when he was a child. One said, "Mom, you are the best. When I grow up, I am going to buy you a big house so you do not work anymore. I love you. Nick." Another said, "Thank you for taking me to the doctor when I got sick. You are the best mom in the world." And another mom today at school, they asked us who we admire. I said, "You, because you never give up." I read every letter, and I cried. But this time, I did not cry for what I lost. I cried for what I had, because for many years I was loved by that boy. I was his heroine, his world, his everything. And although that boy no longer existed, those years did exist, and no one could take them away from me. I kept the letters in a new box. I sealed them, and I put them in the back of the closet, not to forget them, but to honor them. To remember that the love I gave was real, even if the result was not what I expected. Carmen came to visit me in November. She brought tamales, hot chocolate, and a new blanket she knitted for me. We spent a week together. We cooked. We laughed. We cried. We remembered our parents. We talked about life, about decisions, about forgiveness. "Do you think someday you can forgive Nick?" she asked me one night. I do not know. Maybe. But forgiveness does not mean letting him hurt me again. Forgiveness means letting go of the weight of anger, and I am not ready for that yet. It is okay. You do not have to be ready. Forgiveness is not for him, it is for you, and it will come when it has to come. When Carmen left, I stood at the door watching her taxi drive away, and I realized something important. I was not alone. I was never alone. I had only been so focused on Nick that I had not seen all the people who did love me, who did value me, who did take care of me. That night before sleeping, I wrote in my journal something I had not done since I was young. Today I understood that I am not just a mother. I am a sister, a friend, a neighbor, a woman with history, with strength, with courage. I lost a lot of money. I lost my son. But I did not lose myself, and that in the end is the only thing that really matters. I closed the journal, I turned off the light, and I fell asleep with a strange but comforting sensation. The sensation that finally, after so much time, I was on the right path. A path without Nick, without his promises, without his lies. A path where I was enough, where I mattered, where I deserved peace. And even if the path was lonely, it was mine. And that was more than I had had in a long time. 6 months passed. 6 months in which I knew nothing of Nick directly. But the universe has strange ways of getting information to you even when you do not look for it. It was Lupita who told me first. "Carol, yesterday I saw your son at the market. He was asking for work. He looked bad, very bad. I did not ask for details. I did not want to know more. But 2 weeks later, Patricia called me. Fiona's sister. The one who had warned me. Mrs. Parker. I just wanted you to know something. Fiona and Nick separated. She left him as soon as they ran out of money. Now she is with another man, one with much more money than Nick. I understand. Thank you for telling me. And there is something else. Nick. He has been living on the street, or at least in friends' houses who are already tired of supporting him. It seems no one else wants to give him money. I felt a twinge, but not of pain. It was something more complex, a mixture of sadness and acceptance. And Fiona. Oh, she is perfectly fine. New rich boyfriend, new house. She almost never mentions Nick, as if he had never existed. We hung up, and I stayed thinking about how life has its own way of balancing things. A month later, Carmen called me excited. Carol, do you remember that land Dad left both of us in New Mexico? The one we never did anything with? Yes, of course. We just got offered $180,000 for it. A developer wants to build there. Divided between the two of us, it is $90,000 for each. I almost fell off my chair. $90,000. Yes, isn't it incredible Dad continues to take care of us from heaven? I cried. I cried because it was as if my parents were telling me, Calm down, daughter. Life is going to return what you lost. It was not the $400,000 that Nick stole from me, but it was enough to breathe, to have a cushion, to feel a little safer. I signed the papers. The money arrived in my account 2 weeks later, and for the first time in almost a year, I could sleep without worrying about whether I would have enough for the next month. In May, just when the jacarandas were blooming on my street, I received an unexpected visit. It was Robert, Nick's uncle, my second cousin, a good man who had always been like a brother to me. "Carol, I come to ask for your forgiveness." "Forgiveness for what?" "Because Nick came to see me 3 months ago. He asked me for money. He told me a whole story about how you had abandoned him, how you were a cruel mother who had left him on the street, and I believed him. I lent him $20,000. My heart sank. "Robert, wait, let me finish. I lent him the money on the condition that he pay me back in 2 months. 3 passed. He never paid. When I went to look for him, I found out the whole truth about how he had stolen from you, how he had hit you, how he had spent your money on luxuries with that woman. And now I know I was an idiot for believing him, and I came to tell you that I am never going to give him another dollar, and that if you ever need anything, whatever it is, I am here for you." He hugged me, and I felt another piece of my life falling back into place. The family that mattered was still there. Those who really loved me had not abandoned me. In July, while I was drinking coffee in the kitchen, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to do it. "Mrs. Parker. Yes, I am Dr. Mendez from General Hospital. I have a patient here who has you as an emergency contact. Nicholas Parker." My blood froze. What happened? He arrived 2 days ago with a severe infection. Pneumonia. He was living on the street and his immune system collapsed. He is stable now, but... "Ma'am, he asks for you constantly. He says he needs to see you, that he needs to ask for your forgiveness." I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. "Doctor, I appreciate the call, but I cannot go. For my mental health, I cannot. I understand, ma'am, but if you change your mind, he is here in ward 3 bed 12. I hung up and sat there with the coffee getting cold in my hands. Nick was sick, alone in a hospital, asking for me, and I was not going to go. Not because I did not care, but because I had finally understood something that took me 60 years to learn. Loving someone does not mean destroying yourself for them. Loving someone does not mean allowing them to hurt you again and again. Loving someone sometimes means letting them go, even when they are suffering, even when they ask for help. Because if you keep saving them, they will never learn to save themselves. 3 days later, the doctor called again. "Mrs. Parker, I just wanted to inform you that your son was discharged. A friend came for him. He is no longer in the hospital. Thank you for letting me know. Ma'am, he left this for you." "What is it?" "A letter. Do you want me to send it to you by mail?" "No. Please destroy it." "Are you sure?" "Completely sure. Because I did not need to read his apologies. I did not need his promises of change. I did not need anything from him. I had already closed that chapter of my life. In September, a year after all that, I was at the market buying vegetables when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Mrs. Parker." I turned around. It was Fiona, but it was not the Fiona I remembered. This woman had messy hair, deep dark circles, wrinkled clothes. She was no longer wearing those perfect nails or that expensive perfume. "Fiona, I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 2 minutes." I sighed, but I accepted. We sat on a bench in the market. Fiona spoke with a trembling voice. "I want you to know that everything fell apart. The man I left with left me when he discovered I had debts. The credit cards that Nick and I used for the car, for the house, for everything now collectors are chasing me. I do not have a job. I do not have a house. I am living with my mom. And you are telling me this because I understood. I understood that you were right, that I manipulated Nick, that I used him, and that in the end life charged me everything. And Nick, I know nothing about him. After the hospital, he disappeared. Someone told me he went to another city that he is working in, whatever he can, but I have not heard from him again. We stayed silent for a moment. Fiona, I do not know what you want me to say. That I forgive you. That I feel sorry for you. I cannot give you any of those things. I do not want you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that life does collect, and that I am paying every dollar I took from you. She got up and left, and I stood there watching her walk away. She once called me crazy. Years later, I saw that same emptiness in her look while she was alone in that market. Life always collects its debts. That night, I wrote in my journal. Today, I saw karma in action, and I did not feel satisfaction. I did not feel vengeance fulfilled. I only felt a deep sadness for all the broken lives. Nick's, Fiona's, mine. But I also felt something else. Gratitude. Gratitude because although I lost money, I did not lose my essence. Gratitude because although my son betrayed me, my sister supported me. Gratitude because although I was alone, I found my own company. Justice did not come because I sought it. It came on its own, because life has its own rules, and in the end, we all reap what we sow. 2 years have passed since that night, 2 years since the slaps, since the scream, since the police at my door. Today I am 62 years old. I live quietly in my house. Carmen comes to visit me every 3 months. Lupita and I drink coffee every afternoon. I take care of my garden. I read books I had forgotten I liked. I walk in the park on Sundays. I am not rich, but I am not in poverty either. The $90,000 from the land inheritance added to the little I had left have allowed me to live with dignity. With care, yes, but with peace. And Nick, I do not know where he is. Sometimes I hear rumors that he is in another state, that he works in a factory, that he lives alone in a rented room, that he never remarried. I have not seen him again. I have not spoken to him again. And although it sounds hard, I do not miss him like before. I miss the boy he was, but that boy left a long time ago. Sometimes I wonder if I was too hard, if I should have given him another chance, if I should have gone to the hospital when they called me. But then I remember the 5 slaps. I remember the scream, "Get this filthy old woman out of here." I remember Fiona clapping, and I understand that I was not hard. I was fair to myself. I learned something in these 2 years, that a mother's love does not mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear, that setting limits is not lack of love, that sometimes the greatest lesson you can give a child is letting them face the consequences of their own acts. Nick made decisions, bad decisions, and I could not keep saving him from them, because every time I saved him, I taught him that there were no consequences, that there would always be someone to pay for his mistakes, and I could no longer be that person. This morning while watering the plants, I found an old photograph that had fallen behind the bookshelf. It was of Nick at 10 years old with his first soccer trophy. He was smiling with that pure joy children have when they achieve something for the first time. I looked at it for a long while, and instead of crying, I smiled, because that boy existed, and I loved him with all my heart, and nothing that happened after can take those years away from me. I kept the photograph in my album, not hidden, not forgotten, simply in its place. If my story helps just one woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If my story teaches someone that love also requires dignity, I will have fulfilled my purpose in telling it. Because we mothers are not saints. We are women, women who deserve respect, who deserve peace, who deserve to live without guilt. And if that means distancing ourselves from who hurts us, even if it is our own son, then so be it. Motherhood is not a martyrdom. It is an act of love. But love starts with oneself. And I finally learned to love myself. Today, as the sun sets over my small garden, I sit in my favorite chair with a cup of tea. I look at the flowers I planted, the ones that grew despite everything, like me, and I tell myself what I needed to hear so long ago. Carol, you did well. You did the best you could, and that is enough. You are enough. The wind moves the leaves of the magnolia tree, and in that whisper I hear my mother's voice who died 20 years ago, but who has never abandoned me. Daughter, life is wise. It always finds a way to put things in their place. You just keep going, with your head high, with your heart at peace, and that is what I do. Keep going. Not with resentment, not with revenge, simply with the certainty that I deserved something better, and that something better in the end was myself. Thank you for listening to me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and activate the bell to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. God bless you and see you next time.